Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grim Scenarios Live. This is our live panel where we do live Grim Scenarios things. I'm your host, Milk. This is your other host, Emma. And we thought a little bit about what we were going to do this year and decided that we get a lot of questions about Clock Tower from our community and from our podcast friends, either on YouTube or on our Discord, and we decided that this year we're just going to answer a whole bunch of those questions and empty out our mailbag. You're also welcome to contribute questions today. We'll start with some from the hat and, go back and forth.
Yeah, mailbag questions. Let's see, our first mailbag question is, when the Cerenovus and or Pit Hag gang up on the Good Twin, how do you handle that? How does it change how you adjudicate madness? This isn't generally a Cerenovus issue, where the Cerenovus will try to put the Good Twin in a position where they're forced to make claims that are implausible in some way, or extremely difficult madness to keep. It can occasionally be a Pit Hag and Cerenovus problem combined, when the Pit Hag turns the Good Twin into the mutant, and then the Cerenovus tries to make them mad as an outsider. And it can rarely be a Pit Hag problem specifically, but it's hard for it to be a Pit Hag problem specifically.
It would have to be a 13-player, 14-player, 15-player game, right? Because you have to have the Twin and the Cerenovus and the Pit Hag in the game.
Yeah, but if it's just the Pit Hag alone, there's not much they can do.
Yeah, what are they going to change the Good
They
Twin
change them into a character that it would just be the mutant.
Yeah.
I would say, absent the Pit Hag plus Cerenovus doing a gang up on a Good Twin in a 3-minion game, which the specific gang up to be worried about is the Pit Hag turning the Good Twin into the mutant, and the Cerenovus then making the Good Twin mad as the outsider. The question of how you adjudicate that one is, sweeties, no. You don't get to auto win the game by turning the Good Twin into the mutant and then making them Cerenovus mad as the barber and saying, storyteller, you have to execute them now. That's no fun.
Sure don't have to execute them, do you?
You're not gonna, and so that's the big one. That's the big one where there's this technical 3-minion combo in SNV where the evil team could, in theory, with storytelling choices, just instant win the game. Don't. As the storyteller,
Don't make that choice.
Don't make the choice to just let the 3 minions instant win the game. That's no fun. If the Good Twin is merely Cerenovus mad, though, I would say maybe adjudicates madness a little later than you already would. The Cerenovus' job is not to create a win condition. But the Good Twin still has to be responsible, right? You can't say, I'm the Good Twin, so I can ignore that I'm mad as the town crier today. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But maybe, if it's an iffy question, err on the side of not causing annoying instant wins.
Yeah, right. If they're mostly complying with madness and then they slip up, or you can tell that they're trying, right? You're not going to punish that by ending the game for everyone. Yeah. First of all, as a storyteller, it's not fun for you, right? Why would you do you want your players to have that unsatisfying experience of a game ending that's just oops, one person made a mistake, game ends. That can happen on S&V a lot, but usually, as the storyteller, you're trying to navigate the game to a fun ending, right? So crucially, as the storyteller, it's your responsibility to make the game fun for your players. Instant win conditions in general can often be unfun. If it's something the players are choosing, it's different than it's something the storyteller's choosing, right? If the klutz picks the demon, fair game, right? That's built into the way S&V works. If the town executes the saint, fair game. If the town executes a claimed goblin, fair game. But if you're making the adjudication as the storyteller, you're going to need to use a little bit more discretion.
Yeah, obviously the Good Twin has to make a good faith effort, right? We're not saying the Good Twin is immune to the Cerenovus. That'd be also dumb. But, madness involves a lot of calls where it'd be this could be a break, this couldn't be a break. Maybe it's a good idea to execute, maybe it's not. All those calls should be educated in favor of the Good Twin, in my mind. If it's, a question mark, don't do it. If it's very blatantly obvious that the Good Twin is ignoring madness, the Good Twin knew the consequences of that, and they should be executed.
Yeah, and I think if you like as a storyteller get into the habit of thinking about games in that way, right? Thinking about games in terms of like what's going to make this the most fun for the players. I think you're going to make better storytelling decisions in general,
Yeah.
right? Rather than just ending games sort of arbitrarily in a way that's a bit unfun. Something Emma says a lot, which I really agree with, is the least satisfying games are often games that end in the night, right? Because of some decision that the storyteller made or some interaction that happens that then you have to explain to the players, right? It's always better for a game to end on the player's terms as much as possible.
Yeah, like the. I'm not saying like Clock Tower games that end in ways other than the players making a vote on Final Three are bad games. They're not. A lot of them are really good, but those are really good because they're the departure from the norm. The most satisfying way for Clock Tower games to end on average is town collectively deciding who they want to execute on Final Three. So making choices that make it harder for that to happen is generally not good storytelling. But you need the threat of some of these lost conditions, but you don't need to. But the ones that are might be lost conditions, try to avoid them being lost conditions.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is Emma talked briefly during, I think, the TPI Mega Stream about when it's time to stop bits. Would love to hear further about when you should or should not play into bits, and perhaps how to handle games where players prioritize bits or enjoy jokes to the point where only those who are in on the bit are able to enjoy the game. So, this is the thing about jokes. This is the thing about bits. This is the thing about being funny. It requires that it's funny. Like, if you're joking around and having fun, and everyone else is having fun, that's good. Like, we're not playing Clock Tower to have a bad time. We're playing Clock Tower to have a good time. If people are having a good time, it's cool. If people aren't having a good time because of something you're doing, let's talk about the difference between being funny and being an asshole. Like doing stuff that's not making people have a good time is being an asshole, and you shouldn't do that. So that's number one. Is anything if you're doing stuff that's not actually making things more fun, you shouldn't be doing that thing. So that's step one. Step two is like you want to meet the energy of the group you're in. Some groups take this game much more in the like this is a logic puzzle that we're trying to solve together direction. Some people take this much more in some groups take this much more in the we're just joshing around for an hour and we're going to try to win, but that's not really why we're playing the game. If you're in like this intense logic puzzle group and you're sitting there doing bits and making jokes, you're probably not having these players who are looking for the intense logic puzzle probably aren't actually having fun with that, and you should never have started. But let's take what I would say your meeting group where people where it's somewhere in between these two extremes.
Maybe like a convention game.
Yeah,
you don't know everybody.
Yeah, this meeting group where like, and bits is a strange word. So maybe we should talk more about this and about like lies and truths and the such, which are easier to adjudicate than bits. Generally, you should, in the meeting group, in the meeting practice, you should lean towards telling the truth once you have something relevant to tell.
That's as a good player.
Like, as a good player. And as an evil player bluffing as a good player, right. You should do what you would do as a good player. So, like, you're the investigator in Trouble Brewing. One of the investigator's purposes, one of the reasons they're on this script, is they're not there to make the poisoner have a bad time because the poisoner's the minion who's always in the investigator ping, right? They're not there so that the poisoner can have a bad time. They're there so that there's something to talk about in the early game. So as the investigator, you should probably lean into being honest and sharing what you actually know on day 1, maybe day 2 at the latest. On day 5 or 6, it's a little late for you to come out, oh, by the way, I'm the investigator who saw the poisoner. It's John or Jack. They're both still alive, and we can't trust the mayor claim because even if they're good, they're poisoned. um, that's a little late, right? So as the investigator, has someone who has information at the start, information that's there to make the social experience of the early game smoother, because you want something to focus discussion on early, you should probably lean towards stopping the bits, stopping the jokes, telling the truth early. As the flower girl, like whose information doesn't really coalesce into anything actionable until maybe 3 or 4 days of voting, some of the times, like you don't have some sort of weird obligation to share your flower girl yes on 7 people, followed by your flower girl no on 3 people, followed by your flower girl yes on 8 people, um, until this becomes actionable and useful information, and you have a little more leeway to mess around and lie for a while. So it's a continuum, right? It's a continuum of when is it like hurting your team for you to be withholding your information versus uh, potentially helping your team by obscuring things for the evil team. And it's going to be different because depending on the game state, depending on which character you have. But generally speaking, once you have actionable information, it's going to be more fun for everyone in the long run if you're sharing that actionable information rather than, trying to obscure it with nonsense.
I'm going to talk about from a slightly different perspective because social deduction games as a whole are weird in the sense that they are team games, but you don't know who's on your team if you're on the good team, and your team isn't going to be the same in this game or the next game you play or the next game after that. So, as a community or as a group, you might have some inside jokes that help with the fabric of your social relationships, right? And one of the problems with those kind of jokes is that when you add people to your group or you go outside of your group, for example, say you come to a convention where people don't know your jokes or know your relationships, suddenly that's going to change, right? Emma and I have been playing Clock Tower together for 5, 6, as many years now, and we've played a lot of games together over those years, and we have experiences that we share from those games. And we have a certain social dynamic that works for us in games that we play together. You might have that with friends of yours, where you have a certain social dynamic with friends you play with together. I think there's some really interesting things you can talk about when you talk about playing together with partners, right? A romantic partner or a family member, right? And there's a lot of interesting interactions there. Jokes help sort of lubricate that social fabric that make that experience of nominating somebody on day 1 or day 2, where it can feel a little awkward when you're nominating somebody you don't know. Jokes and things like that can help lubricate that social fabric. But there's a limit to what they can do, and if someone's not inside of the joke, it makes it exclusive, right? It makes it, if I make a joke about a game that Emma and I played in, a couple of years ago, in a game with a bunch of people who have no idea about that game, weren't in it, don't know who either of us are, right? That's an exclusive joke that's only funny to the two of us. It's not inclusive of everyone else. So while it might be funny for us, and while it might make sense for us, nobody else is going to get it. So I think you have to remember that there's also a sort of time and a place socially or community-wise for different types of jokes, right? Making a joke about how the empath isn't real, we all get that joke, right? That's an okay joke to make in sort of any community because we all kind of, we get that joke, right? But making an inside joke that's in your community when half of the circle or 3/4 of the circle's from different places, that's harder, right? And it's harder to understand that, and it can feels bad for people who feel like they're left out.
Yeah. I would push back just on a slight part of that, which is stuff like the empath isn't real. I'm going to tell you a joke that's never once been funny in the history of Blood on the Clock Tower, which is you're playing at your local gaming group. It's a public game for your local gaming community. Some new people are there. You're playing Trouble Brewing. It's a mixed experience level. There's the new people, the veterans, and on day 1, one of the veterans goes, "Hey, do we think this is an atheist game? Ha 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 ha." It's never once been funny. It's not funny. It's stupid. It's miserable for the new players who've never heard of the atheists. This is their first time playing Blood on the Clock Tower. It's not a funny joke. It's not a funny bit, and stuff like that's I think a lot of people realize that's obvious. Like the people who don't realize it's not funny to start during a new player TB start making jokes about the atheist. They're not the people, frankly, who are thinking enough about their social interactions to know they're not being assholes. But
Probably shouldn't be helping in a new player game.
like, well, like you don't always have a choice. Like it's not all groups have like two
Sure.
circles. Sometimes it's everyone's playing in a mixed group. Like that's not avoidable. It's fine. Um, but even stuff like the empath isn't real in that mixed level experience, new player trouble brewing. Well, that's sort of shitty for the brand new player who drew the empath out of the token out of the bag and is trying to learn how to use their
That's fair.
information. For have all the veterans go, oh, don't worry about your information. The empath is always drunk anyway. Like let them figure that sort of stuff out on their first. In the first, like don't like push them into your jokes and your metas that already exist. Let them learn, like let them be themselves.
Yeah.
Even like stuff like I cringe every time like I'm playing a mixed experience. I'm running a mixed experience game in my local group when there's new people there, and someone's like, "Hey, do we think the demon star pass them star pass?" I'm like, where does this new player look at this sheet and see the word star pass? Please, like, like stuff like star pass is an inside joke that's exclusive to people who are just learning the game for the first time. Like stuff like, "Hey, do you want to do a 3-for-3?" Like all this stuff, like it's confusing for new players. It's not like I mean, not all of it's jokes. Like obviously, Star Pass is like not meant to be a joke, but the empath isn't real is like
It's jargon, right? Like,
it's jargon. Anything that gets jargony or like meta wise, like that's not interesting for new players. Let new players figure out metas and jargon for themselves. Like
I found that the game is just much more fun when I just be myself, and I don't sort of try to be gamey about it, and I just have conversations with people. It seems just it comes more easily, I think.
Um, let's see. This one is a long question. Let me read it. To my trusted companions Emma and Milk, I find myself in tunnels sometimes. How do I identify when to get out of the tunnel, when to stay in the tunnel? How do I get out of the tunnel, or when necessary, how do I get others to convince others to join in the tunnel with me? But mostly, how do I learn when and how to get out? That's my struggle. Kind regards, Caffeine. Well, thanks, buddy.
Hi, caffeine. Okay, let's talk about what it means to be in a tunnel. Since we just talked about jargon, we should say what it means. What does it mean to be in a tunnel, right? What does that sort of evoke to everyone? It means you're sort of going into a dark, one-directional path, right? It sort of implies that you are going in a direction that you don't really know anything about, but you're not going to stop until you come out the other side, right? And in Clock Tower, when we talk about people tunneling, when we talk about somebody being in a tunnel, it means they're being very single-minded, right? And they sort of got blinders on, and they're just going down a single path. And it's real easy to get into this headspace, especially when you have some really good information. I'm going to give a real quick example that is, I think, fairly straightforward. The investigator gets a ping on night one on two players as the poisoner, and they say, all I'm going to do is try to get these two players killed, because one of them is the poisoner. And once I've gotten them both killed, everything is going to be fine. And it doesn't matter if they claim recluse, and it doesn't matter if there's a librarian that saw me as the drunk. It doesn't matter anything else that redirects me out of my information. I'm going down this path. This is what I've decided to do. One of my biggest pet peeves, I guess, about Clock Tower is I think people spend a lot of time talking and not enough time listening. And I think we all probably have that problem in real life in general anyway. So I think one of the really good ways that you can find your way out of that path is to open up your mind, listen to what other people are saying, and be open to it, right? We're playing a social deduction game. We're playing a lying and talking game. Sometimes you have to trust somebody for a little while. When that person comes to you and says, hey, I'm the librarian, I saw you as the drunk, don't immediately assume they're evil and trying to get you to not pay attention to your information, right? Don't immediately discount the worlds that don't fit your narrative, right? At least acknowledge, okay, actually, maybe there is. You don't have to just immediately go, oh, I'm poisoned because I got information, or, oh, I'm drunk, right? But if there's some evidence, if there's some other evidence pointing you in a direction, you should follow that evidence, or at least pay attention to it, or at least listen to it. The other point which is why I used investigator as an example, is that the investigator doesn't find the demon, which doesn't get you to the end of the game. And if you're so focused, and this is, like a very simple example, but if you're so focused on killing that poisoner that you saw in your ping, you might just miss all the information directing you to kill the demon, right? So for me, being in a tunnel is about closing off areas in your mind of consideration, and getting out of tunnels or not tunneling is about keeping the possibility space open in your mind without necessarily overcommitting yourself to one direction.
Yeah, I think like the thing I think about when I think about people who tunnel, who get over focused on one world, um, who get pushing on it, who keep locking in on it. Um, and this is like one of my general points of advice for Clock Tower is if you think someone is evil, the most important thing to do is to talk to them. Like the one of the things that makes me saddest whenever I see a Clock Tower game is when there's a player who people think are evil, either it's one person or a group of people, and as a result, they're not talking to that player. And I'll talk about it. There's two levels of why that's sad. One is it's not fun for the player who's becoming socially excluded within the game because people think they're evil. And we're here to have a fun time. We're not here to be jerks. When you think someone's evil, so everyone agrees, says, let's not talk to them, they're evil, it's no fun for that player. It's just not a fun game. So, like, you should talk to that player because you don't want to be a jerk. That's step one. But let's say you're the type of person who doesn't care if you're a jerk.
No one here.
You should still go and talk to that player. One thing that's unique about Blood on the Clock Tower is everyone is wrong some of the time. If you meet someone who claims they're never wrong in a game of Blood on the Clock Tower, I promise you one of two things is true. They're lying or they're cheating. Yeah. Those are the only two explanations for never being wrong. They're choosing not to remember the times they were wrong, or they're lying to fluff up their own egos, or they've found some way to cheat. I promise you it's one of those two things. And one of the easiest ways to realize you're wrong, one of the easiest ways to realize you're in the wrong world, is you talk to someone you think is evil, and they speak to you, and the sounds they're making, not the words they're saying, but the sounds they're making, the sound of their voice in your head, the way they're saying it, the words, the tone, how they're making eye contact. These are all things that all people intuitively know how to use to read people's truth-telling.
You're better at that than you are at social deduction.
Like, literally.
You've been doing it longer.
You've been doing it longer. Everyone knows, everyone has some level of ability to do this. And, like, the number of times where I've thought someone is evil and then I've talked to them, I've heard the way they're speaking, I've seen the way their eyes are looking back at me, and I go, oh no, this player's good, is way more than the number of times where I've decided early that someone is evil and been right.
Yeah.
At the end of the game. So, like, if all you care about is winning a game of Blood on the Clock Tower, if the only thing that matters to you is winning a game of Blood on the Clock Tower, you need to talk to the people you think are evil, because a lot of the time you're going to realize after talking to them that you done fucked up. So if you're finding yourself in tunnels, if you're locked into one world or one evil team, because that's when it's going to be. It's when you're going to be locked into one world or one evil team. Talk to the people you think are on that evil team. Talk to the people you think... Don't talk to the other good players. Who cares about them? Talk to the people you think are the bad guys. Hear their voice. Look in their eyes. Listen to them. And you'll be surprised by how many times when you do this... Like, you may think you don't know how to social read people. You may think you don't know how to hear someone and know when they're telling you the truth. And no one's perfect at it. But you're not as bad at it as you think. And when you listen to the people you think you're evil, when you really take time to listen to them, to hear their side of the story, like, there's so much things that can open up. You can sometimes, just from hearing the tone of the voice, they're good. There was a game earlier at the con where, I was pretty sleepy in this game, so there was a lot of things going on. But there was like essentially two worlds because there was two grandmother claims and they were each confirming different people. And obviously, one of these grandmother pairs was two evil players and the other was two good players. And I didn't fully know which one I was trusting, but some people on the team were tunneling on one of the grandmother pairs. And one of those people came up to me and talked to me for seconds, and I was like, they said like 5 words to me, and I was like, oh my god, this player's a good boy. Um, and like, unfortunately, I then fell asleep and couldn't convince the good players who needed to hear this more that they should get out of believing the other team might be good and go talk to this person. But like that 1 5 minute conversation completely ended any question for me. Like this was the good grandmother pair. The other grandmother pair was evil as hell. Um, and that's the sort of like thing that you get when you talk to people you think you're evil. So if you're in the tunnel, if you're like, this is the evil team, I know they're the evil team, nothing's going to convince me I'm wrong. The thing that might convince you that you're wrong is go talk to them. And sometimes an evil player will get you when you do that. Sometimes I'll have the right demon, I'll go talk to them, they'll sound good, and I'll be like, oh, god damn it. And, that's part of the fun of the game. If you don't get got, sometimes the game isn't fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that like makes the game super fun. Is it's fun to lose sometimes. It's fun to get bamboozled and tricked, right?
But
it's great.
The way to get out of the tunnel is to talk to the people you're tunneling on. And it's the nice thing to do. It makes you a better clock tower player. It makes you win more. So whatever approach you're taking to this, whether you're some jackass who just cares about your win rate, or you're trying to have a fun time with your friends, you'll do better if you talk to the people you think are evil.
Yep.
And if people in your group call you evil for talking to the people who think you're evil, tell them, don't be a dick.
Yep. Yeah. There's like a second like part of that question about like what to do if somebody tunnels on you, but it's kind of the same answer, right? If somebody's tunneling on you, try to talk to them. And if they're not open to listening to you, talk to other people, right? Somebody's going to listen to you. There's a wide group range of people in the group. So if you're being tunneled on, talk to the person who's tunneling on you, try to convince them otherwise. And if they won't listen, talk to other people and see if you can convince them. It's not that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Paper noises.
What are some of the most creative Savant info you came up with? I want to make a brief caveat with this question. And I don't want to besmirch any community work, but do not listen to other storytellers' Savant information from the games they're running or the games they're telling you about and say, oh, I can't wait to use that in my game. Savant information is not formulaic. It doesn't come from a box of Savant statements that you pick one out and say, this one works for my game, great. Oh, and this one works for the false statement, great. Savant information should be tailored very specifically to the game you are playing right now and the situation you are in.
That means all Savant information should be creative Savant information.
Yeah.
You should be creating it.
It's like, so I think like some of the most interesting Savant information, and Savant information is much better in person. I just want to be upfront about that. Like, there's lots of characters we know work better in person. Like, everyone knows Wraith works better in person, right? Everyone knows the app Wraith. I see Garrett in the audience. Garrett works on the app. App Wraith kind of sucks. Like, it's a hard idea to implement in the app. They did the best they could, I think. But it's just, like, it's not the most fun character on the app. It's the most fun character in person, in my experience. I love the Wraith. I appreciate that they tried to make it work in the app and they didn't give it up. But it doesn't capture how much fun the Wraith is in the app. There's lots of other characters that work much better in person than online. Savant is one of them, because the amount of information pieces you have access to in person for Savant is so much wider, which means you can do so much more with your Savant information.
Yeah.
Something I love doing with the Savant in person is they'll come out to me and say, hey, can I get my Savant information? They'll generally be looking at me. I'll be looking at the rest of the group. I'll, take some notes about stuff in my head. I'll say, hey, if you turn around, more evil players are sitting down than standing up right now. Is something I like doing. And they just turn around and look, and then I go, oh, and here's your other statement, which is about maybe pants color or something. And stuff like that, where it's a flash, it's a moment, it's not something that they can the end is stuff I've always found better. I also think with Savant, And you need to be careful with this because the other big Savant problem is people don't bluff Savant creatively enough a lot of the time. So it becomes this push and this pull where you want to give actually interesting and good Savant information, which is going to be creative and unique and cool, but then it will obviously be real, and then the Savant's never evil. But so you just have to break your players of using boring Savant information.
Yeah.
Um,
Just stop
bluffs.
giving it.
Yeah, as bluffs. But like, give like awesome power statements that are cool and powerful. Like, tell the Savant a demon bluff. Say, hey, that player's evil. You'd be amazed by how like the simple statements in the true false like do more and create more interesting stuff than like your super complex or your attempt to like lock in like three different type like or your like this is some other information you could get if you were different townsfolk. Like just like tell Savants powerful stuff that no other role can get, and it can be cool. So it can be really interesting and fun Savant information. With anything with Savant, the big caveat is Savant is one of those things that drastically closes worlds in ways you can't always anticipate. If on day one you give the Savant statement, John is a minion, it doesn't matter if that's true or false statements. It means the evil team is then massively restricted in how they build around framing John the rest of the game. So you do have to be a little careful with that when you give like powerful statements, but simple statements I think are often more interesting, more helpful than super complex three-layered Savant statements.
Yeah. I think something that helps me is I sort of do this a lot. I've been trying to do this a lot more in my storytelling. Be more willing to just give garbage info, like info that just doesn't seem believable or right in any way, whether as a Savant statement or sort of in anything. When you have the opportunity to give information, it helps to cover up a lot of things. But one thing it does really well is when you give a Savant statement that sounds like it's just objectively false and it's true, it's the best Savant statement in the world. Some simple statement like Rifts is the demon. Like if you've given garbage statements in other storytelling that you've done and like in games with your group that they've heard you say statements like that before, they're not going to go, oh, well, Rifts is definitely the demon or definitely not the demon, right? Rifts is going to be floating around trying to figure out if Rifts is a demon for the rest of the game. Sorry, Rifts, I just pointed at you because you're nearest. Yeah. Yeah. Should we do another one?
Sure. Our next question I've pulled out is, what do you consider the most difficult to run base 3 and why?
Great one.
All right.
Well, we could take a quick poll of the audience.
Sure, we can take a quick
Let's
poll.
do that. Who thinks Trouble? Raise your hand. You all have to vote. You're not allowed to not vote. Okay. Who thinks Trouble Brewing is the hardest of the base 3 to storytell? That's unsurprising. Who thinks Sex and Violets is the hardest of the base 3 to storytell? Who thinks BMR is the hardest of the base 3 to storytell? It's like 50-50 almost. Mm-hmm. It's pretty close.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat. I think there's no real correct answer to this question. I think you could make a case.
It's individual, right?
For all three of them. I'll start with, let me start with why S&V is incredibly hard to storytell. Because I think, in my mind, S&V is the easiest case for what's hard to storytell about. Vortox and Nodashi are the primary principal drivers of misinformation on Sex and Violets. Vigor Mortis, Philosopher, and Sweetheart do some supplemental drivers of storyteller-created misinformation. But it's primarily Nodashi and Vortox. And also the false side of Dreamer Pings and the wrong statement in Savant statements. It's extremely storyteller intensive to do what false information is meant to be doing, which is helping the evil team in a way that actually helps the evil team. Frankly, a lot of the time when storytellers give wrong information due to Nodashi poisoning or give the wrong information for Vortox misinformation or the wrong ping of a dreamer, it blows up the game in a way that's entirely the storyteller's fault, and that feels bad. Like, everyone knows, like, when, like, the dreamer picks the demon night 1, you don't know what the demon's gonna bluff, you show them one roll and a demon token, The dreamer comes up to the demon and says, "Hey, I dreamed you last night. What are you?" The demon gives a different bluff. Dreamer says, "I misdreamed this player and saw a demon on the other side. Let's kill them." That's a game that Evil just lost because the storyteller, not through their fault, did something that screwed the Evil team, right?
Guessed wrong.
Guessed wrong. Like, and that can happen a lot in SMV with all the sorts of main drivers of misinformation, and that can really take a toll on you as a storyteller because you feel bad. And it's not something your Evil team did wrong. It's something that you as the storyteller made a choice, and that choice ended up screwing the Evil team with something that was meant to help them.
Yeah.
That's very hard, and that's why SMV is.
And that can feel bad. I think is the bigger thing.
BMR, I think BMR is in many ways the easiest of the base 3 to story tell at baseline levels of competence. By which I mean, if you, as a storyteller, read the Bad Moon Rising Almanac, it has suggestions for all the option points, except for Gossip, and we'll get to Gossip in a second. It has suggestions for what to do with the Sailor. It says, always drunk townsfolk, never drunk outsiders or evils.
Yep.
For the Innkeeper, you always drunk a good player if possible. You always drunk the good player, it hurts good more to be drunk. For the Pacifist, you save the first or second execute good player who you can save.
Yep.
For the Shabloff, you do the first or second resurrection you can do. These aren't that tricky of decision points. For baseline level of competence for BMR, you don't really ever have to give misinformation except for some chambermaid book interactions, minstrel nights. And all of this is traceable, so it's going to be known as misinformation a lot of the time. So it ends up being not that big a deal. For an extremely well-run BMR, though, it becomes much harder. Because despite the recommendations in the Almanac, these are all generalities. Sometimes it's actually correct to drunk an evil player with a sailor. Sometimes it's correct to not pacifist save the first 3 good players who are executed, then pacifist save the 4th. Sometimes it's correct not to do a Shabloff resurrection at all. And learning when the off-meta choice for these storyteller option points is correct is very difficult. It takes a lot of practice running BMR. And so to run BMR, the best BMR can be run, is very hard for the storyteller.
Yeah.
Now, Trouble Brewing. No one raised their hand for Trouble Brewing, so I'm going to defend Trouble Brewing as a very hard script to run. Trouble Brewing will normally result in a pretty balanced game, but there's lots of things the storyteller can do that accidentally close off worlds too quickly for Trouble Brewing. Mm-hmm. A big one is in making it too easy to find a Baron.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Investigator. I joked earlier that the Investigator always sees the Poisoner. That's not true. The Investigator frequently sees the Baron, especially with newer storytellers. They almost never see the Scarlet Woman because the storyteller thinks the Scarlet Woman's more important than these other minions. And they don't see the Spy because the storyteller thinks that the Spy's ability is to be immune to the Investigator. It's wrong that they should never see a Scarlet Woman, and it's wrong they should never see a Spy.
Yeah.
When the Investigator sees the Baron, though, here's what happens. A lot of people play a lot of 12-player games. This is partially on the online community's fault. I take partial responsibility for this. But people have
I blame you too.
People have this mistaken idea that 12 player is the correct number for Clock Tower, and every other number is a little bit inferior to 12. In a 12-player game where the Investigator sees the Baron, 4 players are suddenly confirmed. Well, yeah.
That's not great.
It's not great. You've done something that has made the good team be in a much stronger position than they ever should be. And even worse is putting a Recluse there in that Baron ping, because that Recluse is good either way. And so anything that makes it too easy to find a Baron in Trouble Brewing, which there's a lot of stuff that can make it too easy to find a Baron, really collapses worlds in the Evil team in a way that can be super tricky.
Yeah.
I think that the Baron is a big part of why Trouble Brewing is secretly hard to run. But on the converse, if you actually have a Baron game, giving the good team enough tools to pierce through the Baron with the limited number of townsfolk can also be very tricky. +2 outsiders is a lot. The Baron is a very strong minion. And I think the Baron is a deceptively hard to storytell minion, because when it's there, it's important to hide that it's a Baron game, but it's simultaneously important to give the good teams a lot of tools to pierce through the Baron in some way. I think also, I see a lot of games with a spy in it, where the spy isn't relevant for the chef number. The chef's getting the same number regardless of how the spy registers. For whatever reason, they've not registered to the washwoman or the librarian. They obviously can't misregister to a fortune teller. And hey, they're sitting next to the empath, and we can give the empath a 0 instead of a 1. And like I see this a lot, where the only thing the spy was ever going to do is misregister to an empath, and the storyteller has decided that this is what they're going to do. They're going to misregister to the empath. That helps the good team, not the evil team. Like, if all the spy's doing is causing the empath to say, over here there's no demons, what about over there? The spy is now helping the good team. Like, and similar with the recluse. If the recluse is always registering to the fortune teller night 1, guess who's always being confirmed night 1? It's the fortune teller, and you don't want the fortune teller always confirmed night 1. There's a reason why it's rarely in washerwoman pings. It's something that the evil team needs to be better pushed back at. Similar with, like, the investigator seeing the recluse. People keep telling me, a lot of people will tell me that they think that the investigator seeing the recluse is weak. I go, what are you talking about? The investigator seeing the recluse is super strong. This is so powerful. We have 2 confirmed good players instead of an evil player that we don't know about.
Yeah, just as a comparison, the investigator sees the recluse, and town ends up trusting the recluse, and also the librarian's seen the butler, and town trusts that.
Like, I think like Trouble Brewing is easy because there's nothing sort of mechanically taxing on the storyteller run, but the decision points are still hard. Like, I don't think it's a good idea to think of Trouble Brewing as the easy script. I think you need to take all 3 of these scripts and their difficulty points seriously.
Emma basically covered everything I was going to say. Yeah, should we do another one? Let me grab a skinny one. I like these little thin ones. What are, in your opinion, underutilized or, to the contrary, overutilized strategies players tend to take?
Number one underutilized strategy I see is telling the truth.
For real.
Like,
Nina.
There, you know.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Has anybody read the rules of the game? That, like, 1-page rule sheet that comes with the game? Yeah. What does it say about good players? Good players will mostly be telling the truth, but some have an incentive to lie. Good players should mostly be telling the truth. Right? Like, telling the truth is incredibly powerful. Right? And you don't just have to have starting information. Like, Emma and I talk about fortune teller on the podcast as our, like, base townsfolk quite a lot, as sort of our base balanced townsfolk. If the fortune teller gets a yes on night 1, that's great information that the town can immediately use. There's no reason not to give that information to other players. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just want to get that one.
And lining up with an underutilized strategy of telling the truth, an overutilized strategy, because I want to be clear, this strategy is not telling the truth, is, hi, yes, I am on this half of the script sheet. I see this strategy a lot. I see it in a lot of different groups. This is one where I don't even know how this one's spread across the world, because it's not like this one is online stream's fault, because we don't even carry scripts to say, hey, I'm on this half of the sheet on.
No, it's vertical.
Everywhere. I go everywhere, and I'm like, why are people saying I'm on this half of the sheet? First of all, this is not a subset of telling the truth. Even if you're telling the truth about which half of the sheet you're on, that's not the truth. Second of all, it's useless.
I am never going to care or remember if you give me that much information. I won't care later if you're like, well, I told you I was in this half of the sheet. I don't care. I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
So that's my number one thing, is if you're on the good team, you should tell the truth more and try to be weirdly obscure about your role in a way that you could later say you were telling the truth about less. By telling the truth, I mean saying, yes, this is my role and this is the information I have. I think even for characters who you might think might not want to do that, it can be surprisingly powerful. Like, do you know how powerful a Raven Keeper is if everyone believes they're the Raven Keeper because they've been saying they're the Raven Keeper for day one? Is if they're suddenly alive with 4 players left and the demon is like, I can't frame this person. Everyone knows they're good and the Raven Keeper, and then they have to kill the Raven Keeper who's been telling the truth the whole game and everyone knows is good going into Final 3. Do you know how strong that Raven Keeper is? My goodness, it's
Similarly, maybe like 2 years ago, I was playing a game with a local group. It was just like a newer local group I hadn't played with before, and so I was playing this game, and I just claimed monk. I was the monk. I claimed monk starting day one. Do you know what every person in the circle thought I was the entire game? They thought I was the Raven Keeper. Right? I just kept telling them the truth, and then when we got to the end of the game, and evil had not killed me because they thought I was the Raven Keeper claiming to be the monk. I was protecting good players in Final 3, Final 4, Final 5, So, like, telling the truth, it doesn't, let people believe what they want to believe. It's fine.
And I'm not saying you can never lie. I'm not saying...
Nah, you should lie.
I'm not saying you can't lie when you're good. I lie when I'm good all the time. I'm a bad influence. I apologize. But, like, lying as good has its uses, but the volume of lying to not lying that I see from good players... I see this among experienced good players. I see this among new players with their ridiculous on this half of the script stuff. I see this with the mid-level players. I see this in groups that are chaotic. I see this in groups that are intense puzzlers. I see this everywhere I go. I see all these good players doing on a 75% lie, 25% truth split. It should be the other way around.
You gotta get that the other way around.
Please, if you want to know about the utilized strategy, it's not lying to people.
Yeah. If you're like, oh God, I keep losing is good. I can't solve these games. You know what'll help solve the games? Telling people the truth. If everyone in the game told the truth, of course, every single player, we wouldn't have a game anymore. But what you would have is 100% good win rate.
It can be less fun to tell the truth, but you can tell the truth in fun ways.
I do. I love that.
You can lie in unfun ways too. Being fun is not a direct correlation of how much you're lying or telling the truth. But please, if you're looking for an utilized strategy, stop fucking lying.
I'll give you 3 words that I find that help with telling the truth. Definitely, probably, and sure. So what are you? I'm probably the Raven Keeper. Okay. And then you talk to the next person. What are you? I'm definitely the Raven Keeper. And then you talk to another person. Hey, are you the Raven Keeper? Sure. Those are all true statements in that situation. Would you believe half of those? But you can play it in many different ways, right? You just have to think about, you have more tools than the words you're using. People forget this, right? You have more tools than the words that you're using. You have your facial expressions. You have your tone of voice. You can laugh. You can snort. You can do whatever noise. Yeah, I'm the Raven Keeper. You can do whatever you want, right? You can play in different and more interesting ways. It doesn't have to be this yes, I am the Raven Keeper. I am Clock Tower Bot 1000. You can do other stuff.
Yeah, so I'm sorry whoever submitted that question. If you were expecting a more, here's a complex strategy that you could use, I'm never going to answer this question with anything other than tell the truth more.
Yeah. It's good. All right. Oh, Emily sent this one. This question is for Milk specifically. How do you keep getting away with it?
We'll just skip that one.
We're going to skip that one. Can't give away all my secrets.
How do you fix various mistakes when you make them? Which ones are small enough not to address? When do you announce to the whole group that a mistake has been made? I'm curious about making big mistakes, like not giving the evil team a kill when they should get one, killing someone you shouldn't, messing up the outsider count when you build the bag, etc.
I think this is storyteller, specifically about storyteller mistakes.
Yeah. Here's my main thing here is most mistakes, even the ones you think are a big deal, aren't as big a deal as you think. I sometimes see people say, oh, if you mess up the outsider count, you just need to re-rack immediately. That's not really true. You can just say you made a mistake in setup.
Yep.
Or you made a mistake. You don't even have to specify what the mistake is. It's going to make it harder to solve, but if you have a mistake that you can't fix, the only thing you need to do there is say, I've made a mistake I can't fix. And then you move on.
If you can fix it, just fix it.
Yeah, like outside,
Even if it's like day 2.
yeah,
You know.
like the only time I'm really gonna like re-rack because of something is if players aren't having a good time, or like someone took 2 tokens out of the bag. Like everything else, if it's a big mistake like outsider count, or I messed up who lives or who dies, like just announce you've made an unfixable mistake. Don't even do it immediately. Do it at some point.
Yeah. Wait till later.
Like if you mess up, like you don't have to do it immediately. You can do it a little later, so it can be a larger universe of things your players can think about what the mistake might be. But I think you rarely need to re-rack.
I ran. Oh, sorry.
For the smaller mistakes I think are the more interesting ones. This is where like you forget to wake a player. This is a small mistake, by the way. Like if you forget to wake the poisoner night 1 of Trouble Parade. This is something that's happened to me a few times. You just forget to wake the poisoner for whatever reason. You're going too fast. You're dumb. Like you forget to wake the poisoner doesn't get to poison anyone night 1. It's sad. Like, you know,
in the average game, the poisoner's going to miss about half the time. It's not like breaking the game. It's a little sad. It's unfortunate for the player. You can apologize later.
you can, as soon as you realize that, the poisoner will probably tell you at some point you forgot to wake them up. Is my experience is when I forget to wake up the poisoner comes to me at some point during one day and says, hey, you forgot to wake me up. At that point, just let them pick a player and poison, and like if it can still have an effect, it will. Like, you know,
maybe Slayer.
Maybe they snipe the Slayer that way. Maybe they, do something else interesting.
Virgin could hit a Virgin.
Yeah, they could have Virgin or a Slayer. Cool. That's fun.
Yeah.
Like, probably don't go if they pick the empath who you gave true information to because you forgot to wake up the poisoner last night. Probably then don't go to the empath and say, hey, by the way, you got a 2, not a 1 last night. Because that's a little too obvious. But on the other hand, a lot of times, we talked about Savant a little bit earlier. A lot of times with Savant, I'll hear the Savant say the information I gave them, and I'll realize I made a slight whoops in how I translated the logic I was going for in my head to the Savant, and they got 2 true statements, so they're supposed to get a true and a false.
Whoops.
And, the Savant's going to come back to me tomorrow, and when they come back to me tomorrow, I'm going to be like, hey, did I say X and Y? I meant X and not Y. You heard X and not Y, right? And they'll go, no, I heard X and Y. I'll be like, oh, no, I said X and not Y.
Yeah. Hey, I heard you saying the Savant information I gave you, and I just wanted to let you know. You said, I said that. We might have got a mistake,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Like, you don't have to gaslight them.
No, yeah.
You can just...
I might have made a mistake. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I might have made a mistake.
But, you can fix a lot of, these small, information pieces. Like, if you make it... Like, if you... Even, recurring information, when you wake up the fortune teller night 2, you can say, hey, I gave you a yes last night. You can write it on your phone in person. I use my phone a lot to communicate with my players at night for anything that's tricky. You can say, hey, I gave you a yes last night, and they'll be like, no, you gave me a no. And I was like, oh, I meant to give you a yes. You can do small stuff like this. Any information can be corrected. If you've given wrong information, you can correct that wrong information, do it in some sort of private capacity, and then you don't even need to announce the mistake. If your storyteller corrects your information in this way, I beg of you not to go, oh, hey, by the way, my Oracle number from last night changed from a 0 to a 1 because the storyteller told me that I got a 1 actually and the 0 was a mistake. Please don't do that. The purpose of me doing this, of the storytellers correcting their small information mistakes, is to make your information correct. It's not so good players can meta that you're good because you've received correct information from the storyteller. But if that is happening in your group, evil players bluff that you've received corrected information from the storyteller.
It'll work.
What
I usually tell people if I have to correct correct information later is I'll usually say, you can share this if you want to. It's up to you. I wouldn't.
Yeah. If the demon points at player A and you thought they were pointing at player B, so you announced player B was dead when player A should be dead,
you can't fix that.
I'm really sorry to the demon that I killed the wrong player for them, but don't worry about it that much. It's not that big a deal. And also, especially in person, you can start incorporating the thing where you just walk up and stand over the player someone was pointing at his head and point straight down at the top of their head, so the demon can nod or yes. I had a really
Take the extra 5 seconds to do that.
yeah. I had a really sad moment in a game I was running yesterday where I thought the huntsman pointed at the damsel, and I went over to excitedly confirm that they had pointed at the damsel, and they were like, "No, I was pointing at their neighbor." And I was like, "No! I shouldn't have confirmed. I thought you were pointing at the damsel." But I'm glad I confirmed. I'm glad I confirmed and did the correct thing rather than the incorrect thing. But like, if you announce the wrong person is dead, oh well. If you announce that a player didn't survive execution when the DA had protected them and you just forgot, you know, it's probably not the end of the world for the DA because it's probably not the demon if you made this mistake.
Yeah.
If it's the demon and you made this mistake, whoops.
Yeah. Oh well.
Oh well. Like, obviously, if you've announced the game is over, you cannot go back from this mistake.
Yeah.
You might be able to fix the team that won if you made a mistake about which team won, but you can't fix the mistake of announcing that the game was over. You've revealed too much at that point.
You also can't unkill people, right? Like, you just can't, because that person's just now not the demon in most game circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, prior to this game, I also made a mistake in a game, which is that I forgot to wake the bounty hunter turned evil townsfolk on the first night to tell them that they were evil. So on night 3, when I go, oh, I forgot to do that, I can't go back to the bounty hunter turned evil juggler and say, hey, by the way, you've been playing for evil this entire game. And I also can't go to another good player and say, hey, by the way, you've been evil this whole time. So all you can do in that situation is say, well, we're just not going to have a bounty hunter turned evil player this game, and I'll apologize at the end and hope that it all works out. And most players are understanding of that. And if somebody gives you a hard time about it, they're the ones who's being a jerk. So, do another one?
Sure.
Yeah. When, if ever, is it good/acceptable to lie about your information as a good player in Final 3 or in the end game? That is, I think that's about making up information that points at the world you believe in rather than using the information that exists. This is like a big social faux pas in a lot of play spaces where lying about information that isn't true, or making up information that points at an evil team as a good player is maybe considered not okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give what I hope sounds like a careful and nuanced answer to this question. There is nothing inherently wrong about making up lies as a good player to point at the evil team you think is the actual evil team to try to get them killed in the way that you think will help you win the game. There's nothing inherently wrong in that. And here's what I'll say with the caveats. Like Milk said, some groups might find this unfun. I can't comment on what people think is fun or not. That's going to be like a people-to-people thing, and if your group's not going to find that fun, I would heavily advise you against not doing things that the people you're playing with are going to find unfun.
Know your group.
The second thing I would say is you better be pretty damn confident about the information you're making up, or you're going to seem like a jackass, even if this isn't a group where this is going to seem socially unacceptable.
It's a team game.
But I don't... Let's start with this. Let's say you're the mutant, right? You're the mutant in Final 3 of Sex and Violets, and you think you found the evil team. You cannot claim you're an outsider. You can't admit the truth. You have to make up some sort of lie in the situation, right? As the mutant, you should be making up the lie that you think is going to most help the good team win. And if that is, I'm pretty sure Sam is the demon. I'm going to say that I'm the artist who asked, is Sam, Dave, or Brian the demon? And Dave and Brian are dead and got a yes. Well, that's fine. We cannot go around saying that the way the mutant has to play a game of Blood on the Clock Tower is bad behavior.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing inherently wrong with making up information that you're good to sell the world you believe in. I want to be very clear, but that's some things you have to. some people will find it a little iffy if you're the empath who had a 0 and you suddenly claim that you had a 2. I've played in games where an empath did that. Good friend Molobach has played in games where an empath did that to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, um, you know, it's, I would say, is treat with caution, but it's not wrong to do things that you think will help your team win. But maybe make sure you're right.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much else to say about it, right? It's your group. It's the people you're playing with, right? You want to be kind to them. You want to treat them with respect. I think that's like the core thing. If you think somebody that you're playing with, whether they're good or evil, is not going to appreciate that, find a way to do it differently, is what I would say. I think, and especially with less experienced players who are going to feel real bad about that. I think just be very cautious about it. If it's kind of an accepted thing in your play group and you're playing with friends you played with 1,000 times and it's sort of okay, great. But that's something you're gonna have to make a judgment call most of the time, and it probably is okay in the game rules at least. Should we do like two more and maybe just take a couple questions? I think probably easiest.
Sure.
I'll grab this one. How do you find joy in characters that players don't or that people don't like, or in games that feel like they went wrong? That's a pretty fair question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you played Clock Tower long enough, right, you're going to encounter a game that just doesn't go well, right? Where you kind of feel bad at the end and you're kind of struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what's important is to remember that everybody who's playing together is not doing this as a job. We're all doing this to have fun together, including the storyteller who's taking their time to make a fun game and like is enjoying being kind of with everybody and being social. So this is, I think, a tough thing when you feel like you're very competitive, or if you find yourself to be a very competitive person, that sometimes you just get very stressed about it. This thing from Ted Lasso where Ted says, "What's the happiest animal on earth?" Right? It's a goldfish. Why? Because they have an 8-second memory. Right? You got to be like a goldfish. You got to have, you got to take the joy out of the game that you can. You got to have the fun in the game that you can. And then when you get to the end, you got to just have an 8-second memory and say, you know what? Yeah, that one was kind of rough, but I bet it was rough for everybody in their own way. I bet it was rough for the storyteller who kind of maybe felt bad about a decision that they made or about stuff that happened, right? And you have to find the joy in it together because you want to come back and play again later because you love the game, right? So there's a big thing I think involved in this is to just acknowledge, hey, game didn't feel great for me. You don't have to confront anybody about that in that moment, right? You want to take the time away from it that you need, and maybe step back and say, I got to debrief with myself. I can't really, maybe you just say good game, well played, right? And kind of step back. And for me, that's what works for me when I feel like a game goes wrong. Because otherwise, I get too into it. I try to like deconstruct everything that went wrong. I try to figure out what happened. I try to work my way back, and it just feels bad. You're just kind of layering negativity on negativity. So like with any game, right, or any sport, if you've ever played a sport or team game or whatever, sometimes you just have to let the last play go and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of games, I don't think you're under any obligation to enjoy a game you didn't enjoy. You're not under a social or moral obligation to claim something was fun when it wasn't. You shouldn't be a dick to people. Like, you shouldn't go up to the storyteller and say, "Hey, fuck you! That was the worst game of Blood on the Clock Tower I've ever played in my life. I hope you never storytell again, you jackass." You don't need to do that, but you're not like under obligation to say, "I had a great time," to yourself in your head when you didn't have a good time.
Absolutely.
You can just like sort of move on with your life, and that would be what I would recommend for games that aren't fun. Is don't try to pretend they were fun. Don't say, "Oh, I had so much fun playing that game that wasn't fun." Just let yourself move on. In terms of characters that you don't like or that people don't like, what I would say is, if you really don't like a character, first of all, I'm not sure I believe you. And I say that with all due respect. I know people have characters they don't like playing with. And when I say I don't really believe you, that's not because I think you're lying to me when you say you don't like a character. I think it's more that I think a lot of these characters that people don't like, it's because they're on scripts that don't highlight these characters well. Um,
Partly because they don't have base scripts,
Partly,
because they're experimental.
yeah. I think most of the time it's experimental, though there's some
There's
base
a few
three
others,
characters
yeah.
that people don't like. Um, I think part of it's that, and I think like it's really a script design problem that has been masquerading to you as a player as a character problem. But whatever, like there's that level of it. The second level is I think a lot of the times with characters people don't like, it's they played one game and didn't have a good time in that one game, and then they've decided this character is the devil and I must never touch it again. In which case, I really can't help with that question. If that's was your reaction to having a bad game with that character, I think like you either get over it or you don't. Like I can't. But let's say I'm wrong. Let's say it's a character that you've really given a fair shake to, and it just doesn't get along with you. You have two options in this situation. One is you can just not play with that character.
Yep.
Which you're under no obligation, again, morally or socially, to play a game of Blood in the Clock Tower. If you sit down and you hate, let's pick a real controversial character. You hate the imp. You sit down, you see a script has an imp on it. You can say, "Sorry, I don't want to play imp games. That character sucks." Like that can be if that's really where you are. Don't sit down and play an imp game. You have no moral or social obligation to do something for fun that you don't find fun.
Your group also doesn't have a moral or social obligation to pick a script that has only characters that you like on it, right?
Yeah.
It like goes both ways. You don't get to dictate what gets played.
Like, and it really again depends on the situation. If you're playing with like a small circle of friends, like 10 to 12 people, like your social group, you're hanging out for like a party at your house. Yeah, try to pick scripts that people are going to have fun in this situation, right? Like, don't invite 10 friends over who have played Blood in the Clock Tower a bunch and say, all right, I know these 6 people don't want to play Sex and Violets. They don't enjoy Sex and Violets. I'm going to make them play Sex and Violets for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's sort of, why are you doing this to your friends? But if your interaction with Clock Tower is like in public games, whether online or in person, like in this situation, you as a player coming to a public game don't really have a right to dictate to the group what's being run. If there's 2 circles, maybe go to the circle that's playing the script you don't hate.
Yeah.
If both circles are playing a script you hate, like maybe just, I don't know, decenter yourself a little bit. Like maybe it's not the end of the world if you have to spend an hour and a half playing a game where a character you don't find fun might be in play, and you might be if the might be in play part of it is there, and if you happen to be this character you don't enjoy, it's an hour and a half of your life.
Bad luck.
It's like, the reason you play Blood on the Clock Tower is because you find the general game fun, you find the general situation of the game fun, you find do the fun parts of Blood on the Clock Tower, and don't worry about your ability that much. I promise you, your ability is the least important thing about a game of Blood on the Clock Tower.
It really is. It's great if there are abilities that you really enjoy or really like, and it's great. It's okay if there's abilities. I'm less happy about this statement, but it's okay if there's abilities that you really don't like, or the things that you really don't want to interact with, or that just don't suit you as a person. Like that's all super fine.
Yeah.
But who cares what token you pull?
I will flag the one character I think people legitimately don't like for fair reasons is Yagababble.
Yagababble, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite characters. But I do think that I understand that lots of people like being quieter in the public space than the Yagababble allows, and I understand that. I think like if you're the Yagababble, I think like create a dialogue with your storyteller.
Yeah.
About how your phrase can work.
Yeah, you can negotiate out what the phrase is.
I've seen Yagababbles win while refusing to say their phrase for ridiculous reasons.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's that. Yeah, I don't. With given respect, but you don't need to actually say the Yagababble phrase too much to win. You can just say it a lot one day.
No, Obsidian Yagavav literally refused to
Not
ever
say it at
say
all,
those
right?
words.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
They objected to it for some ridiculous reason.
I can't imagine what that was. I thought we'd do this one last and just take a couple questions because I thought that was a good question.
Yeah, this was a question we got. It was, how do you know when it's time to take a break? And the answer is, you're asking the question. Like, if you're sitting here going, I don't know if I want to play Clock Tower right now, I maybe should take a break from the game for a while. There are things in this world that aren't Blood on the Clock Tower. You are not obligated to play this game constantly until you've driven yourself into misery playing it too much.
Yep.
If you feel like you might need a break from Clock Tower, I highly recommend. Here's some activities that aren't Clock Tower that I've found can be enjoyable. Going for a walk. Holding a dog in your lap, petting a cat, having dinner, sleeping,
Sleeping's great.
watching movies, listening to some music, reading a book, calling your mom if you have a good relationship with your mom, calling your friend if you probably have a good relationship with your friend, talking to your loved ones, looking at photos of small children that you're friendly with, like my nieces and nephews. Oh, it's real fun to watch, to look at photos, of cute photos my mom or my brothers or my sisters-in-law send me of my nieces and nephews. I'm like, wow, these kids are pretty awesome. These are things I could do that aren't playing Clock Tower. If I feel like I need a break from Clock Tower, there's absolutely no reason why I need to be playing a game of Blood on the Clock Tower. Life is not just one thing. If all you do is one thing, you're gonna hate that thing eventually.
Yeah.
Life is a variety of experiences. If you think you might need a break from Blood on the Clock Tower, for the love of God, take a break.
Yeah, it seems like it's a somewhat popular pastime game that people enjoy. Obviously it's only the 30, 40 of us here, but it doesn't seem like there's many people. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So if you need to take a little time off, if you want to do some other things, I think that's probably a great idea. And you should take care of yourselves in that way. Because it turns out doing things in the real world can sometimes be fun too.
All right. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or want to push back against anything we've said? If not, we'll go back to the hat, and there's a few more questions out there. Yes?
Do you want me to go to the mic, or do you want me...
Nina, do you want Huffpuff to go to the mic or not?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
This is actually a genuine question I've been grappling this whole weekend.
That's good. We like real questions.
Real questions.
We prefer statements if possible.
First of all, I want to say it's about information. Grim Scenarios is great, where the Earth is falling.
Okay.
Actual legit question. I have somebody who I love who plays Clock Tower, has only played Trouble Brewing. How do I know which of SMV or BMR to do first to introduce them to? Like, how would you make that distinction?
For me, I think that if you're the storyteller, you should introduce people to whichever one you feel more comfortable storytelling for them, between SMV and BMR first. If you feel completely comfortable storytelling either one, I would say it's about who they are as a player. Sex and Violence is a lot about... Sex and Violence is about loud noises. The good team makes loud noises, and the evil team makes loud noises. There's lots of information. The evil team, to win in Sex and Violence, generally needs to counter the good team's information with their own information. There's also lots of misinformation in Sex and Violence. You need to create this giant stew of true and false things as the evil team to cloud it, and as the good team, you need to be parsing through all these and trying to work them out together. If that's the type of player they are, I think S and V. BMR is a logic puzzle. People don't understand this about BMR, but it's a logic puzzle.
Yeah.
Everything in BMR is basically public except for chambermaid information.
And it's all mechanical.
And the grandmother. It's about putting together the logic puzzle of, all right, these many people died, this person survived execution, that person died, this person survived execution, that person died, and working out the logic puzzle of how to solve it. It's a game that I think is much calmer a lot of the time, and a game that suits some of the more puzzler personalities who don't enjoy the big drama of Sex and Violence as much. So that would be my general recommendation: is do whichever you feel more comfortable with as a storyteller. But then if they're more of a big play person, Sex and Violets. If they're more of a cool logic puzzler, BMR.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good question. I think to maintain consistency of character across the past 5 years or so, what I'll say is, why would anyone play anything but Trouble Brewing? Anybody else? Yeah, come on. Awesome hat, by the way.
So my group that I like to play with online is a very small group. We usually only have about 7 or 8 players. So I was wondering if there are any just storytelling or player strategy tips for really small groups like that.
Oh, yeah.
For player strategy, with the big thing to remember with player strategy is the good team has a certain number of executions determined by the player count, basically.
Yep.
If you're playing mostly 2-minion games, as a good player, everything you should be doing should be focused on trying to execute the demon. So, like, the investigator in a 1-minion game is more of, here's 2 players not to execute. Unless they see a Scarlet Woman or something like that, right? Whereas the fortune teller is, if you're the fortune teller and you have a no day 1, that's 3 players not to execute. Like, which means you should be focusing on the other 4. You just need to be much more, like, you can just ignore minions in 1-minion games to a much higher degree. As the evil team in a small game, I think a lot of the times you have much more opportunity to get attrition wins in, and not in the sense of, like, you get the sweep that you can get when you turn on a 2 or 3 minion game, but, like, you can just remove all of good team's tools much quicker, which means I think in a 1-minion game as an evil player, you just need to be much more aggressive about trying to find out what's up with the good team. You can't, like, a lot of evil players would like to sit back and try not to be noticed. I think that's much harder to do in smaller games.
Yeah.
Versus big games where I think fading into the background is a little bit more viable. As a storyteller for small games, I think like my main storytelling tip for small games, and I do these in person occasionally, is smaller games are, by their nature, they take less time and they require less investment. Just because of the time factor. That doesn't mean they're worse games, doesn't mean they're not as good games. It means if you're investing 90 minutes in something, it's one thing, whereas if you're investing 45 minutes in something, it's something else, right?
Yeah.
Like, just in terms of... So, like, when I'm running a 7-player game, it's freeing in a way that when I'm running a 15-player game, it's not. When I'm running a 15-player game, I know I'm expecting to take 90 minutes or 2 hours of people's times, and therefore all my decisions have to be, like, worthy of the fact that I'm asking people to give me 2 hours of their time. When I'm asking them to give me 30 to 45 minutes of their time, like I am in a 7-player game, I can just try stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it becomes a much smaller deal. I can, like, do things that I would be scared of doing in a big game. Because if it's bad, if it doesn't work out great, it's going to be over quick anyway. Whereas in a big game... So I think, like, one of that... And that's fun, right? I think as a storyteller, that means you can get a little wilder with what you do with, like, an amnesiac token. You can get a little wilder with what you'd allow with a Wizard Wish, because...
You're only stuck with that decision for an hour.
Yeah, you're stuck with the decision for a much smaller amount of time, which means, like... Not saying that you should use your players as guinea pigs, though you can. But, like, I think, like, you have the opportunity to be a little more free in small games than you do in big games.
Super simple example. I agree with everything Emma said. Based on the example that Emma gave. She mentioned, in a small game, you should probably not be killing the investigator pings because they're not the demon. What does that mean? That means the storyteller could put the demon in the investigator ping, and now the town has to figure out if they need to kill the investigator pings to find the demon. Right? So it's like you can think about the game in a different way because the town's focus and time are going to be different. And I mean, if you have to re-rack an 8-player game, on day 2 because they killed the demon and investigator ping. Who cares? You get to play another game.
You probably had 45 minutes more anyway because
Yeah.
like these games are taking shorter. Like if I book my local group, I normally book. We start at 6 p.m. We end between 10 p.m. and midnight. That's probably two games, 3 if we're lucky. If we had that same amount of time for 7-player games, if that was what we normally got, we'd be getting like 4 or 5 games in, which means we can try more. You can try more stuff because the expectation is these games are going to be quicker, faster, and be more variety. Whereas the bigger games, because you're just asking for so much of people's times, it can be like a little more like I have to not waste their time, because if you waste someone's time for a 15-player game, like you might not have time for another one. So take advantage of the fact that you probably have the time to try something, and if it doesn't work out, you get to try something different.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Anybody else? Oh, yeah. Oh, I know this fine fellow.
Oh yeah, totally.
What's up, Santa?
How would you approach co-storytelling? Whether it's a new
Mhm.
ST coming to you, or maybe somebody you've storytold with before, well, new to you, or just new in general.
I think this is something where we might disagree, actually.
My main I have I don't approve of co-storytelling. Not to say that it's wrong. I know people who love co-storytelling. Milk co-storytellers every Tuesday night. Navian in the audience co-storytells with Malishon frequently. I don't like co-storytelling. That doesn't mean like I'm not willing to sit behind the grim with a new storyteller and help them out.
Yeah.
But if I'm sitting behind the grim with a new storyteller to help them out, online I frequently hide in spectator chat rather than being risen up. And in person, I'm probably sitting at a table nearby rather than standing up and actively doing things. And like my main thought is it's important that there's someone who is the voice of authority in a Clock Tower game. And that person should be the storyteller. And talking about just diverging into one of my other pet peeves, it's when I'm running a game with new players in it and some veteran player starts trying to explain the rules. I've told them to stop before. Like it's important that I think it's important to have a single voice of authority, and I think it's important for new storytellers to feel like to gain the confidence in their own decision making. Like if they want to ask my opinion on something, I'm happy to give it, but I'm going to try to give it in a way that says this is one option. This is the part of what will happen if you make this choice. This will part of what happen with that choice, and I want them to gain the confidence to make the choice. Like I love the way the wiki is written, where all the tips and tricks are do this or do the exact opposite. Like that is how I want new storytellers to learn and to think. Is I want them to think through the consequences of choices, not have a veteran storyteller tell them what to do. So I don't co-storytell in the sense that if someone wants my help when they're storytelling, I don't want the players to necessarily even know that I'm helping. I want the storyteller to be the one the players think is doing things, and if I'm helping, I want it to be very much in the background. And in terms of like, if I'm actually storytelling, I have huge qualms about slowing my nights down, for example, to talk things over with another person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I understand that they're trying to learn, but long nights are the death of Clock Tower.
Yes.
If a night can be done in 2 minutes and it's done in 5 minutes, I think that's a sin. I don't want to spend my players' time like going through things with another storyteller or bantering with them when I could be completing the night. And that's just so like, and I like, so like, I am happy to talk to people about storytelling. Outside of the game, I'm happy to have people watch me storytell. I obviously stream storytelling on a regular basis, and I'm happy to, people can watch those videos, and I talk about my decision-making thought process in those a lot, and I will talk to you for hours on end if you want to talk to me about storytelling, but I'm not going to have you as a co-storyteller. You can shadow me, you can watch me, you can talk with me before or after, but I'm never going to have someone as a co-storyteller, and for me, it's just I think it slows the game down, which I think is unfair to the players, and I think it can create questions of who is the voice of authority, which I think makes issues when things get socially tough. And I know that other people love co-storytelling, but yeah, that's my answer, and I think Milk will have a different one.
Actually, the answer's not that much different. It's a little bit different. I actually agree with Emma 100% on teaching new storytellers. I would rather shadow another storyteller than have them shadow me or co-storytell with me. I would rather say, hey, I'm here if you have a question, but I don't want to talk to the town. Like, if you want to talk about, like, your first night setup, I'll look at your first night setup with you, no problem. But, like, I'm really just present so that you can run the game that you want to run. If you've played, 24 games of Trouble Brewing, it's really easy to run a game of Trouble Brewing. It's going to sort of just be fine, right? And your first game that you run is not going to be the most complicated game of all time, right? You're going to do just fine. And if I'm just around so that you can ask me a question, that's probably all you need. I've done that for tons and tons of people, and most of the time, I don't get any questions. I think I 100% agree with Emma. If you're storytelling online and it's not for entertainment, like content creation purposes, I absolutely agree. You should not have multiple storytellers. It's way too confusing for the players. It's too many voices. You don't need to talk through your decision making at night. There's not really a reason to do that because there's nobody watching you for you to hear your thought process. And just to be honest, there's places where folks can go to listen to that. They can go listen to Emma on the TPI stream and hear someone who has tons and tons of experience storytelling, or Ben or Aggie. You could go listen to those folks, and they have tons of experience, and you can get different perspectives. There's tons of streams. You can listen to people. So I don't even think it's useful for a storyteller in an online game to talk about what they're doing for the spectators of that game who are just watching. I don't find any of that to be particularly useful personally. Sabanite and I co-storytell every week on Tuesdays on our stream. We do that mainly for entertainment purposes, and if you watch us, really only one of us actually does the storytelling at a time. The other one's sort of there to sort of bounce ideas off of or to catch mistakes, because to be honest, I find streaming extremely overwhelming. It's a lot to do. There's a chat to talk to. There's players who are trying to make a good game. And so I find it helpful to have another person to catch my mistakes or to bounce thoughts off of. That's just me personally and what works for me. When we do one game where we're both storytelling, and then we do one game where one of us plays. And the game where one of us plays, you don't even see the storyteller, and it's a single storyteller. So I think, I kind of agree with Emma that the ideal is not to have that. But I think if you are trying to create a game for people to watch so that they would know how to play Clock Tower for whatever reason, again, you don't need to do that. That's been done. It's out there in the world. I can understand having another person there so that you have a person to have a conversation with, or to bounce thoughts back and forth off of, so that people can hear the process. I don't think it's super fun to have somebody else helping you make your decisions most of the time. So yeah, I actually mostly agree with Emma with a slight caveat.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I think we're at the end of our time, right? We did it? Hey, we did it, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate all you. Hope you enjoyed it.